If I asked you who this is, you would certainly reply Charlie Chaplin. At the height of his career, he was probably the most popular person on the planet. But if I asked you who this is, you would almost certainly reply, yeah, I know how surprises work, Dick. That must be Charlie Chaplin too, and you'd be absolutely right. But my point stands. Now this is not literally Charlie Chaplin. That'd be like saying this is Robert Downey Jr. No, this is a character Charlie Chaplin created called the Tramp, who completely eclipsed his real persona in worldwide recognition, and to this day is one of the most famous faces in film history. Hell, show anyone the man with a toothbrush mustache, derby hat, and a cane, and they will immediately recognize the character, even if they've never seen a Charlie Chaplin film in their lives.
He would have you believe he is a scientist, a musician, a duke, a polo player. However, he's not above robbing a baby of its candy. And of course, if the occasion warrants it, he will kick a lady in the rear, but only in extreme anger.
When performing the role of the Tramp, Chaplin's gags were often slapstick and showcased impeccable physical comedy and playful expressiveness. But one thing that is often overlooked is the sarcastic, devilish subtextual comedy of his filmography, where he proudly bucked trends, messed with his audience, and took the piss out of fascist world leaders. I mean, really. So, first off, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about subtextual comedy?
What the hell? Oh my god, what is he doing? Oh my god, are you kidding me?
For a modern example, let's take a look at the interdimensional TV sequence from Rick and Morty.
Seems like TV from other dimensions has a somewhat looser feel to it. Yeah, it's got an almost improvisational tone. It's two brothers and they're gonna. It's called Two Brothers. Two Brothers. It's just called Two Brothers.
These sequences are hilarious in their own right on account of the actual text of the bits, but the fact that they're so improvisational is a whole other layer of comedy. When you stop and think about the fact that in animation, a medium that usually requires careful planning and extended writing sessions to make sure the stories are told as efficiently as possible, these guys are literally just winging it here.
Alright, I'm putting you into his neck right now. Oh shit, Rick, this is crazy. What are all these blue things in here? No time to worry about the blue things, Morty. We gotta get to Ruben's brain immediately.
You recognize that there's an audacity to it. They are thumbing their nose at the way these things are usually done, but still killing it at the craft. I mean, it's almost like... Now that we know what we're looking for, let's go looking for what we now know in the work of Charlie Chaplin. The man's filmography consists of 82 films, so there is an insane amount of material to draw from, but I really want to zero in on a specific time frame. The window between 1934 and 1940, when he directed the 1-2 punch of modern times and The Great Dictator. The reason these two provide a great insight into the sarcastic humor of Charlie Chaplin as a filmmaker versus as a comic character is that together they straddle his last silent film and his first talkie. The first film ever to feature sound as we know it was The Jazz Singer in 1927. It only had synchronized singing and speaking in a handful of isolated sequences, but it was a hell of a trick.
Mama, darling, if I'm a success in this show, well, we're going to move from here. Oh yes, we're going to move up in the Bronx.
And it changed filmmaking forever. Except, I just said Charlie Chaplin's first full sound film wasn't released until 1940. And you're doing the math trying to figure out how Chaplin managed to not make a talkie until 13 years after sound caught on. It wasn't fear, so much as reluctance that drove him to continue making silent films for so long after the advent of sound. By the time The Jazz Singer was released, Chaplin's Tramp character had already been around for 13 years. To suddenly give such an iconic character a voice could be really jarring, if not only because Chaplin had a British accent, which you wouldn't expect coming from the Tramp. It would lead to the reverse of that uncanny sensation of realizing a voice actor looks nothing like you thought they would. Case in point, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but I feel I must. This is Jonathan Freeman, the voice actor of Jafar in Aladdin.
Calm yourself, Iago. Soon I will be Sultan. It's time to say goodbye, Prince Abu.
So you see what Chaplin was hoping to avoid. None of this is to mention the fact that the Tramp was a worldwide phenomenon. Giving him a voice meant giving him a language, and limiting how people can enjoy his films. On top of all this, Chaplin films weren't struggling on account of their silence. Chaplin didn't feel that talking films were necessarily better and certainly not inherently funnier. Sound was not to be used as a crutch but as a tool, and Chaplin was still wildly successful without it. He would say, "We lose half our qualities if we lose our limitations." But 1934's Modern Times would be the film where Chaplin finally gave in. It would be the Tramp's last film appearance, and he would finally let the world hear the little guy speak. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Strap in. First of all, it includes a scene of the Tramp accidentally doing cocaine, despite the fact that it was specifically against the rules set forth by the Motion Picture Production Code. That's more like it, Mr. Chaplin. 90% of the film had gone by, and the Tramp hasn't said a word. He's just killing it with the world-class physical comedy audiences had come to expect from a Chaplin film, and no worse for lacking dialogue. If you're trying to figure out why you know some of these bits, but haven't seen the film, yes, it's the one being screened in The Joker. It's fine, if that's your point of reference. I'm not here to judge. Throughout the film, the Tramp has been buffeted by society and tossed from several jobs that strip him of his humanity and sometimes literally turn him into a cog in a machine. Finally, a friend tries to get him a job as a waiter. And one of the conditions of his employment is that he needs to know how to sing. Now, hyped audiences are looking down the barrel of him not only speaking for the first time, but actually singing. He preps for his first performance, voicing his doubts that he'll be able to remember the words. So his friend writes the lyrics on his cuffs, only for this to happen right away. He stalls for as long as he can until finally, taking the advice of his friend and embodying Chaplin's thesis that the Tramp had little to benefit from speaking, he belts out nonsense Franco-Italian gibberish. Completely deflating the hype created by the possibility of him finally speaking. And inventing the crip walk at the same time. His exaggerated physical performance communicates the story despite the lyrics not making any sense. In fact, copies of the film distributed internationally had a note specifically telling exhibitors not to try to translate or subtitle the sequence into anything that may be understood by audiences. Never mind the words. Chaplin was able to play a joke on his audience, craft a joke in his film, and close his case for visual comedy all at once. With his point made, Charlie lets the Tramp walk off into the horizon, never to be seen again. Until the next film, kind of, where he plays a barber that wears the same clothes, but does act less cartoony, so you can kind of think of it as a leveled up Tramp. If you recognize this melody, but are pretty sure you haven't heard the song, actually you have. It's the one in the Joker trailer.
Gotham's lost its way. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
Now, to be clear, Chaplin's presupposition was that there are instances where speech is deficient as a comic medium. This is not to say he did not also recognize the power and potential of dialogue. His next film would have a lot to say.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another.
Now, if you're wondering why this looks familiar, but you haven't seen the movie, it's probably because this speech was plastered on everybody's Facebook after the 2016 election, usually with music from Inception over it for some reason.
The way of life can be free and beautiful.
There we go.
We have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls.
Again, it's fine. I mean, maybe cast a wider net next time you watch a movie, but I'm not here to judge. It's fine.
More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost.
You're listening to this impassioned speech and thinking, but I'll stop you right there. It should be obvious that in his film The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin set Adolf Hitler squarely in his sights for parody and satire. This may not seem terribly brazen, films do that pretty often, but take into account that not only was Hitler still alive, he was alarmingly popular. When Chaplin started working on The Great Dictator, most of the world was at peace with Nazi Germany. They had hosted the Olympics just 2 years prior to Chaplin writing the film. America was no exception. Hell, the German-American Federation held a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden, where 20,000 American Nazis and sympathizers gave the Nazi salute to a 30-foot tall painting of George Washington surrounded by swastikas. It did draw its dissenters. In the middle of a speech where the Federation leader referred to President Franklin D. Roosevelt as Rosenfield, a Jewish American named Isidore Greenbaum took to the stage to protest, but he was quickly tackled, beat up, thrown off stage with his pants down, and fined a $25 fine, all by American police. And the film industry was only too happy not to make waves. Films still made good money in Axis countries like Germany and Italy. Germans, Hitler included, were big American film enthusiasts. Hitler personally screened many films and dictated which would be allowed to show to the rest of the country. Louis B. Mayer of MGM would screen films for the Nazi consul and even make changes based on their input to increase the chances of a German release. Chaplin himself appeared on the Nazis' radar in a 1934 book titled The Jews Are Looking at You. The Nazi Party made reference to Chaplin as a disgusting Jewish acrobat. Now, Chaplin is not Jewish, but hey, the Nazis had a shtick, so, you stick to it. And Charlie never denied it. See, in 1931, Chaplin drew a crowd of fervent fans when he visited Berlin, and fandom towards a rumored Jew right in the Führer headquarters did not sit right with the Nazi ideology.
Es lässt sich nicht leugnen, ein Teil des deutschen Volkes applaudierte damals ahnungslos den zugewanderten Juden, den Todfeinden seiner Rasse.
Chaplin could expect resistance from Hollywood. His home country of England announced that they would ban the film upon its release, in an effort to appease Nazi Germany. And the Nazis expressed a personal dislike for him. There has not been a worse time in history to make a film featuring Hitler falling down a flight of stairs. But surely by now you've realized. Chaplin self-financed The Great Dictator and began filming in September 1938. World War II had started just 6 days before cameras rolled. This was a perfect fit for Chaplin's first sound film. Charlie studied Hitler extensively in preparation and was able to recognize the source of his power, his skills as a public speaker. Having the exact opposite problem as Chaplin, Hitler's popularity in Germany really didn't take off until he was able to spread footage of himself with sound. Ironically enough, Hitler saw the advent of sound in The Jazz Singer and adopted it as soon as possible. He even took acting lessons to hone his skills as an orator. But now, Chaplin had caught up. He studied Leni Riefenstahl's Nazi propaganda film Triumph of the Will, finding it hilarious, until he could nail down Hitler's mannerisms and pattern of speech for The Great Dictator.
Denn als unsere Partei gerade 7 Mann hoch war, sprach sie schon 2 Grundsätze aus. Hey, der Fluten sagt der Fleppen, ein Tomenia bis ein Strapf, und der Blitzen sagt der Knütz. Hey, ich blei noch straff mit der...
In the film, Chaplin plays 2 characters. A Jewish barber who recovers from a head injury to find his home overrun by fascists.
Strange. And I always thought of you as an Aryan.
I'm a vegetarian.
And Adolf Hitler stand-in Adenoid Hinkel, ruthless leader of the, I kid you not, double-cross political party.
Enough.
He starts the film with a title card, offering relief to those who had apprehensions about the likenesses in the film. Chaplin again makes clever use of his talent for speaking nonsense that says more than actual dialogue could.
Democracy stunk.
Democracy is fragrant.
Liberty stunk.
Liberty is odious.
Free sprechen stunk.
Freedom of speech is objectionable.
He takes the intense and aggressive style of speech that made Hitler so engaging and menacing and turns it into one of the film's best jokes.
Der Juden. Der Juden. Und der trifft das Sauerkraut mit der Juden. Und der Leberwurst mit der Juden. Der Flützensack Feiner mit der Juden. Der Flützensack der Klärten. Der Strängelichen mit der Huldensack der Fläten. Und der Blätzensack der Elten. Besick! Besick! Der Juden. Der Juden.
His Excellency has just referred to the Jewish people.
When the film was finished, he personally sent a copy to Hitler for his viewing pleasure. The official stance is that Hitler never saw the film himself. But records found after the war indicate that he screened it twice. Some in Hitler's inner circle claim he enjoyed it, as he had a sense of humor. These early scenes may have played well, even for Hitler, on account of the fact that they are making fun of him for his strengths, like when you tease someone for how much they work out. But one can only imagine that at least one scene bit. One of Chaplin's most affecting scenes, that show him firing on all cylinders and making stellar use of both dialogue and pure physicality.
Out Caesar, out Nolus, Emperor of the world. My word.
The conceit is funny, but the sequence is almost painful to watch, not because it feels realistic, but because it feels true. It's uncomfortable in its poignancy, and there's no way whoever watched this with Hitler literally in the room didn't shift in their seats. By the time the production ended and the film was released, people's eyes had been opened, and The Great Dictator landed exactly the way it needed to. England did release the film, in the middle of the Blitz no less. It was a huge hit almost worldwide, and became Charlie's most successful film, not only from the metric of box office numbers or award nominations, but also because of the recognition of the courage it took to make the film, and the spread of that courage across the globe.
Every one of my friends, many of whom were Jewish, like myself, felt that a David had arisen, a comic David, to fight Goliath, and we could only be happy.
In the finale of the film, the two characters Chaplin plays are mistaken for each other, and the Jewish barber, thought to be Hinkle, is forced to give a speech.
Speak. I can't. You must. It's our only hope.
And it's here that we are introduced to a third character, one that has always been in the shadows of the other characters. The speech is delivered not by Hinkle, or the barber, or the tramp, but by Charlie Chaplin.
We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way.
A different ending had been planned for The Great Dictator, but as filming continued on, so did the war, and Chaplin was prompted to rewrite the final speech after Hitler's attack on France.
Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost.
He decided more than anything he wanted to address the audience himself and ask for peace.
In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Some try to talk Chaplin out of ending the film on this speech. One film salesman said the speech would cost him $1 million at the box office. Chaplin replied, "Well, I don't care if it's $5 million."